Please welcome the radio voice of the South Bend Cubs, Brendan King. He joins us this morning. Brendan, how are you, man?
Brian, great to be with you, man.
Good morning, Mr. King. How did you get started in broadcasting? What gave you the push to say, you know what, I can do this?
Man, it's been a long journey. I mean, that's a big question to get it started. I think it obviously starts. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. My grandfather, George King, worked in TV advertising, Brian, and in the 1950s and 60s, worked with the Blackhawks and the Sox and the Cubs, and just when the Bulls were getting started as well. So, he's meeting these people like Lloyd Pettit and Jack Brickhouse and some of the more important Chicago media people back in the 60s and 70s. And I would hear stories growing up, Brian, and I took an interest to it. So I think that's where the interest started. And then I was lucky enough to call some games in high school. I went to Lincoln Way East in Frankfurt.
The Griffins,
yeah. How about that? And had a great time there. Quit playing sports to actually focus on being in the booth, and got some great experience calling their football and basketball games. And man, it's been a wild road since.
I grew up also on Chicago's South Side, and I can point to one voice. You mentioned Lloyd Pettit, wonderful voice. I've done some studying of him, and of course Pat Foley, the longtime voice of the Blackhawks. But John Rooney when he was with the White Sox for many, many years. But I point to one fellow, and I talk about this all the time, that gave me the bug that say I can do this. His name is Jim Durham. Many years he was the announcer for the Bulls. I first heard him in '85 call a game between the Bulls and the Milwaukee Bucks, playoff game. And when I heard that, when I heard his voice, I said, that's what I want to do. I said, that's what I want to do. I couldn't play to save my life, though I've tried. I fell in love with baseball because of my dad and my granddad, and had many a game of catch with them. Man, okay. I asked who was the first voice you heard that really pulled the trigger for you?
It's a great question. I think at least one memorable voice was actually a guy that I get to call a mentor now, and that's Pat Hughes, the voice of the Chicago Cubs.
Yes,
man. So I would get picked up from school every day by either my grandfather or my dad, and if it was April or May, or if it was August or September, or even October sometimes, we would turn on, at the time, 720 WGN. And listen to Pat Hughes and Ron Santo.
I love
it. Some great memories of listening to Pat growing up, and now getting to broadcast in the organization. I've not only met and gotten to know Pat, but I'm lucky enough to where he offers to listen to some of my stuff, give me great tips and advice, and man, that's worth its weight in gold, right? So
it is.
Yeah, I mean, Pat is a huge name, but I mean, growing up, Brian, I was born in '94, so I really can't remember the heyday of Harry, but I was old enough when he passed to understand what happened.
Yeah.
That was an era in its own right. So,
it is
incredible.
It is, man. One of the fellows who became my very first mentor he recently retired, Bill Baker, when he was at Northern Illinois for many, many years. He was at my first game, December 7th of '95 at Chicago State when they played Northern Illinois. And in 4 days, it will officially mark my 29th year as a play-by-play announcer and my 29th year in broadcasting. I still feel like a kid. I still feel like a young 20, 30-year-old just getting my feet wet into all this. How'd you land with the South Bend Cubs?
Very lucky to be with them, first of all. And it's funny you mentioned Chicago State. I just had their game at Indiana State, actually. So that was my first game of the year on ESPN Plus this offseason. But anyway, to your question, yeah, I mean, so my first baseball gig was in the Cape Cod League in 2016. Went to Butler University in Indianapolis, had a great time there. Butler went to the Sweet 16 my senior year. So, I mean, quality basketball was played during my time
Yep.
at Butler.
Yep.
But got to go out on the Cape and kind of grind your teeth and just have fun and call games, man, in Orleans, Massachusetts with the Orleans Firebirds. And, you know, I'm sure people listening out there have at least heard of the Cape Cod League. But, man, it's not only the best developmental baseball league in the country for players, it's that way for broadcasters.
Yes.
No question about it. If you go out there, you're going to get an unbelievable experience. And you're going to realize, you know, if it's for you or not, because that was the farthest I've ever been from home, hours away.
Yep.
I myself was living with the broadcast crew. It was an amazing experience. But the next summer, after I graduated from Butler, this would be 2017, same thing. Farthest I've ever been from home, 22 hours away in Boise, Idaho. I was a play-by-play guy for the Boise Hawks, rookie ball at the time.
Yeah.
And at the time, Brian, Boise, that league, the Northwest League, it had the longest bus rides in minor league baseball. So I go from the Cape, where every morning I went to the beach, I went for a run, and, you know, I got my coffee at the same spot every day, out to Boise, where our shortest bus ride was 6 hours. The longest bus ride was 14 hours. We had a 2-week road trip at the end of the year, 2 weeks straight, because the circus was in town in Boise.
Yes.
So the team and the circus was at our home ballpark. So the team was like, "The hell with you! You're going on the road for 2 weeks." So yeah, it's crazy, because that was one of the most fun 2 weeks I've ever had in my career. We went to Eugene, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, Salem, Oregon, and then up to Vancouver.
Yep.
And had an incredible time. And the last thing I'll say about Boise is the best part about that team, I was 22 out of college. The entire team was 22 out of college. For whatever reason, it just kind of shook out where most of the team were college arms and bats. There were not a ton of international guys on that team for whatever reason.
Right.
So everybody on that team was 22 and just had graduated college. and the same with me. So you can imagine what those bus rides were like.
I love it.
And then to answer your question, getting to South Bend, man, 2018, again, I grew up a diehard Cubs fan. They were looking for a number 2 broadcaster at that time. And I took it to, you know, get a little closer to home. The bus rides were a little more manageable. But, you know, we won a Midwest League championship in 2019. I was lucky enough to be on the call for that as the number 2. And then the pandemic hit. That changed some things. And I came back to South Bend in 2022. We won another championship. And, you know, since that point, I've been lucky enough to be the voice of the team. So it's been a great ride.
The longest bus ride I ever had, I was with Trinity International in Deerfield, Illinois. And we had our opening game in South Dakota.
Yeah.
The night before, I had to cover a volleyball match in Michigan City. This was 2013. Had to cover a volleyball match in Michigan City. I didn't have any wheels at the time. So I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to get from Michigan City to Deerfield and find a way to sleep? So improvisation is king with me.
Yep.
Hopped a train from Michigan City all the way into downtown Chicago, slept the whole way. Then I had to run through Union Station. I had to run from the station on Michigan Avenue, fly up to Union Station. And I had about 25 minutes to make this train, because the next one didn't come until 6 a.m. and I'd be in deep trouble if I missed that trip.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where the strength came from, but I had a backpack, I had my suitcase,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm flying up Madison. I'm flying up Madison. Car comes speeding by me, and I'm thinking I'm in deep trouble. No, it was a cab. Said, "Do you need a ride somewhere?" I said, "I got to get to Union Station. I don't have any money to pay you. I just got money to get this train ticket to go to Deerfield, Illinois." He said, "Hop in. I got you."
Hey,
I hopped in, flew to Union Station. I shook his hand, and I went flying into the station, and I made the train with
there
room
you
to spare. I was sweating like a pig. I was dog tired. And as soon I made sure I put my ticket out on the back of the seat so he wouldn't call me or anything like that. I lay back in the seat and I passed out
Mm-hmm.
all the way to Deerfield. Got to Deerfield, got on the bus, and then I got slammed with a headache.
Oh yeah. Oh, that ran catch caught up with you.
Oh boy, did it ever. I got slammed with a headache, which turned into something worse. By the time we got to Minnesota, to Bloomington, Minnesota, get something to eat, I couldn't keep anything down for the life of me. So
Mm-hmm.
I grabbed something to go. I figured, okay, my stomach will calm down. Never did.
Mm-mm.
Never did. And the worst part was we had to go to a school in South Dakota and do a walkthrough, and it was 101 degrees.
man.
Oh wow.
And I'm sitting there. The managers are looking at me going, "Why did you get off the bus?" Because I had to, so I can watch the walkthrough with the players. It's kind of what I do. We finally got to the hotel, and I'm thinking, okay, whoever I'm staying with is going to hate me because I'm going to pass out and I'm going to snore my brains out.
Right.
This is me. I know me and how I am on these long trips. Victor's
Mm-hmm.
been on a long trip with me. He knows.
That I have.
Kirk Warrett, who was a very dear friend of mine and was the coach at the time at TIU, saw me. He raced up to the desk, got something, and I didn't know what he got. I'm seeing double at this time. Runs back to me, hands me an itinerary, and he says, "Go to bed." I barely see the room number, and I said, "Yes, sir," and fell out. I know you've had trips like that.
Yeah, I think everybody's had at least one, right? Where you're just
Yes.
you
Yep.
are just not ready. You are not
Mm-mm,
primed to call a game.
mm-mm. Nope.
You know, it's kind of funny. I remember on the Cape, I got strep throat like the
Mm,
game,
Oh.
mm.
and yeah, I obviously any broadcaster knows this. You'd not literally, but I guess in a joking way, you'd rather break your leg than get strep throat.
Yep.
Absolutely,
Right? I mean,
Yep.
because strep
that's the
throat
dumbest
takes
thing to
your
say, but it's true.
voice.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oh, I was with Marquette Catholic, 2015. I was with Marquette Catholic in Michigan City. Had a doubleheader that day. I didn't read where the first game was.
Mm-hmm.
So coach called me and said, "Are you going with us to Fort Wayne?" Fort Wayne? The hell are you doing going to Fort Wayne? Found out the game was in Fort Wayne. Uh-oh. I better get to campus quick. Hop in my car. I fly to campus, sleep all the way to Fort Wayne, and I had my voice. Did the game in Fort Wayne against Bishop Lures.
Mm-hmm.
Had my voice. It was intact when I got on the bus, stopped to get lunch. I called the athletic director and I said, "How much time do I have?" "We are just getting done with the sophomore game,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll have the full 20 minutes to get set up," because we were like 10 minutes out of Michigan City.
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Okay, good." I warmed up. I did my warm up. I did my usual warm up. By the time I pressed the button to broadcast, I had no voice.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough.
I'm thinking, where the hell did that voice go?
Where'd it go?
And I had parents around me that heard me do the earlier game saying, I thought your voice was intact. I barely got through that game. I accepted all of my congratulations. I got paid that night, and I went home. So getting any kind of laryngitis and strep throat,
the worst.
Not fun.
No. I mean, the term in college hoops and March is survive and advance. I mean, sometimes that's us when we're struggling, right?
You know, I had a call when I was in North Carolina, and I was with Lewisburg College, and I hadn't had like a big home run call. I've had like solo shots that would extend the lead or something to get us back in the game, but never that big like game tying call until this happened. Second, Galinsky at first, nobody out. The pitch. Swinging a drive into deep center field. Miller back at the track, looking up. See you later! The Mad Dog has done it! We are tied at 7! And nobody out! Attaboy, Mad Dog! I couldn't believe it. Thank you. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. Because, like I said, I never. You go through when you like first get started with the team, you're looking for in your mind, you're always looking for that signature call, and you don't know when it's going to happen. Especially with baseball, you don't know when it's going to happen.
Totally.
And when it happens, you're going, was I just there for that one?
Yeah.
I mean, you called a championship.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, take us through that. What was that like? Having a championship call.
Yeah. Back to your point, I think it's easy to realize sometimes when you're in the middle of a very crucial call.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a part of that, there's nothing better because you understand you're calling a significant moment. So, I didn't have my first walk-off call, Brian, until 2019. So I didn't have one in the Cape. I didn't have one in Boise. Didn't have one my first year in South Bend. So it took a little patience for sure. I was
I get it.
I was sending in my tape. I was like, man, I just don't have that big one.
Right. Right.
Thankfully, again, very blessed to say I've been a part of 2 championship calls in South Bend, 2019 and 2022. It's beneficial when the organization you work for, like the Cubs, has the number 2 farm system in all baseball,
and
they just continue to stockpile great talent. And you can see it at Wrigley right now. That talent is reaching the big leagues.
Oh yeah.
And it's just gonna keep on coming. But yeah, I mean, I think where I'm luckiest on both championships is that kind of what I was talking about earlier, the Boise experience being 22 and out of college. The entire team was 22 out of college. Both of those tied. I just turned 30. So both of those championships came in my 20s. I was pretty much the same age as the rest of the team. And the celebrations off the charts. So, both times we won the title on the road, which is funny.
Yeah.
It's like each time we win it, we obviously do the champagne at the ballpark.
Yep.
And then, you get on the team bus.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, this is minor league baseball. This isn't the NBA. So we're not in Miami. We're not in LA. We're not going clubbing. The first one was in rural Iowa. The second one was in a suburb of Cleveland.
Yes.
So, we get on the bus after the champagne. It's like, well, what do we do now?
Right.
both times we figured we found plans, but yeah, I mean,
Yep.
unreal. And then and then the really funny part is you wake up the next morning and then you have to bus back to South Bend.
Yes.
And the bus back to South Bend each morning after both championships, there was a lot of water. Every guy was wearing sunglasses, and we made do. So yeah, great experiences both times.
Oh gosh. Well,
sounds like a lot of Excedrin was consumed after all those appearances.
Well, I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do something about the headache, right? Because you got to go. I got to go back to work the next day. The next day is like a Thursday. I actually have to be productive the next day.
You know what? When I was covering Marquette Catholic in the 2013-2014 season, and it turned out that the boys team went on an incredible run. They lost against Andrean High School at home, didn't lose again, all the way to the state championship. And every game got bigger and bigger and bigger, and I was there for it. And when I get messages from people who heard my call, and they're saying you did a great job. As I look, the kids did this for me. All right. If it were not for the kids, there wouldn't be any me. I'll give you an example of that. We went to Bourbonnais, Illinois. I was with Trinity International, went to Bourbonnais, Illinois to play Olivet Nazarene. Olivet Nazarene was blowing us out of the water. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a calm call. I'll be all right. No. TIU decided to make a game of it. They had the ball on their own 9 in the midst of this comeback.
Mm-hmm.
And as I often say, and then this happened. Pena waits and takes the snap. He'll fire the screen, complete to Beals, 10, 15. Oh, this is trouble. One man to beat. 40, 50. Go, Denny, go. 30, 20, 10, 5. Good night. Touchdown. Unbelievable. That was one of those times I threw the rules out the window.
Been there, done that.
And he was gone.
Like I said, it was one of those times I threw the rules out the window. What was the hardest sport you've ever called?
Ooh, I think if I didn't have experience playing, it would probably be hockey. But that's what I grew up with, man. I mean, that was probably my best sport. Although I've gone into baseball, hockey's my bread and butter. Something that I actually really did not know much about, and I think this is really what has been a thing that's defined my career so far. Going down to Indianapolis to school, the city of Indianapolis each May is consumed by the Indianapolis 500. And although, so I have not physically called the Indianapolis 500, but I'm lucky enough to be the studio host each May for practice qualifying in the race.
My guy.
Yeah, for
Love it.
107.5 The Fan in Indy. So listen, I'm a South Chicago guy through and through.
Mm-hmm.
There's Chicagoland Speedway that I went to a couple times as a kid, but that didn't prepare you for the Indy 500. When somebody told me when I first got down there that every Memorial Day weekend in May, two residential streets are responsible for bringing in 475,000 people to a venue.
They are.
Yes.
I thought they were crazy. I said, "What are you talking about?"
And then you see it for yourself.
You ain't seen live. You ain't seen crazy.
That'd be like if LaGrange Road was responsible for bringing in 500,000 people to my hometown.
Right.
I just couldn't picture it. But then you go to the race for the first time, and funny enough, my first time covering the race was August of 2020 when they
the pandemic one.
Yeah, the pandemic race.
Mm-hmm.
Takuma Sato won. And then so they were happy enough with what I did that race. And then they brought me back for 21, which was I believe like 60% attendance.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Even that was amazing because Elio Castro Neves won his 4th Indy 500.
4-time Spider-Man.
That's right. And then the next year in 22 was my first time literally seeing it at its brightest spot.
It's an animal, dude.
Oh my
It is
God.
a complete animal.
500,000 people.
Oh,
I'm covering practice. I'm covering all sections of qualifying. I'm covering the race. It's funny because I'd covered the race twice before that. And they were like, okay, now this is for real. You need to get there at 5 a.m. or else you're going to be sitting in traffic for the entire morning. So I did. And then this last Indy 500 was crazy because it was delayed due to rain. They got to run it. And you know what they say about the pageantry of that place, guys, where it's literally downpouring from 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. It's a monsoon. You still got people drinking in the infield. They tell people, hey,
dude, that party starts at the start of the month, and it don't end till about 3 days after June.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a lightning warning. They tell people, hey, you need to leave the venue and you need to come back in. People are still
and they're not moving.
No, they're not moving.
There's a party going on in turn 3. They ain't dipping. What are you talking about?
There's a party in the infield. There could be a lightning warning. There could be a weather warning. They're not moving.
And that's exactly what happened this year. But where it really stood out to me was at like 4 o'clock. The sun pops out.
Yep.
And
yeah, I did.
Everybody just gets back into the place. They have the flyover. They run the race. Race finishes at dusk. And Joseph Newgarden wins back-to-back Indy 500.
With a huge move down the front straightaway.
Exactly. So, yeah, long-windedly, I didn't know squat about IndyCar racing about 6 years ago, and now it's one of my more knowledgeable topics. So
I love it.
It just goes to show you always got to be ready.
Same with me when it comes to hockey. Yeah. Many years I've listened to Pat Foley call games, John Weideman. I love listening to him and a few others, but I haven't called a hockey game in 10 years. I'm going to fix that tonight with a virtual call of Edmonton and Vegas at 10 o'clock Eastern just to get the chops ready, because I know there is something out there waiting for me where hockey is part of their season. I know this, I feel this, and I'm going to keep practicing. But you want to talk about a time where I had to deal with a party out front.
Uh-oh.
There was a state semifinal game one year when a state quarterfinal game, I beg your pardon, when the Brother Rice Crusaders hosted your Lincoln Way East Griffins. They built temporary stands in one of the end zones. Yes. In one of the end zones. That's how much people were wanting to come in and pay and see the game. And Victor was with me. Craig Hill was with me.
Wow.
And that whole day, we did nothing but prepare for Brother Rice and Lincoln Way East, because it was the game of the night.
Yeah.
It was the game of the night. It was the state playoff game of the night. It was a quarterfinal game. And I'm thinking, how are we going to do this? Because because we're used to having games on Friday with the Catholic League, and it's always a 7:30 kickoff. No, that night it was Saturday, and it was 7 o'clock. And Craig was the first one to say we got to move everything up a half hour because of the kickoff time. So what we did was we spread our pregame show from 30. We extended, I beg your pardon, from 30 minutes to an hour because of all the notes we got that Saturday from the good guys at Lincoln Way East and all the notes we got the couple days before from Brother Rice.
And here's the crazy thing is that when we got set up, when we first got there, it was probably about quarter full, the stands were.
Yep.
By the time we finished setting everything up, which probably only took about 10 minutes, I looked up and I looked at Snowman and I said, Snowman, full. He's like, what?
I looked out the window. And this is when Brother Rice had the old press box. When you had to squeeze everybody into that damn box.
Yep.
Including Mike Minervini, the longtime statistician, all the folks from Lincoln Way East, and the radio guy, I can't remember his name at the time, from Lincoln Way East, was like giving me pointers, and I was doing the same for him with names and everything. And he came in and he says, "Who's Brother Rice's voice?" I said, "You're looking at him." And he just looked at me and he smiled and he goes, "Can you help me with some of these pronunciations if I run into it?" I said, "Sure, if you do the same for me." He said, "I got you." Had a ball. Brother Rice may have lost, but had a ball that night.
Mm-hmm.
What year was that?
2005.
Yeah.
2005.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was a little before my time, but
it was 2005 because 2003 we had a big state semifinal game against Lockport.
Yeah.
And that was crazy. Because that game produced 1,000 yards that night.
Mm-hmm.
I've called some wild games. What was the wildest? We'll end with this, and we'll both share stories about that. What was the wildest game you've ever called?
Man, that's an easy answer. I want to take you back to July 4th, 2017. I was the play-by-play guy in Boise at the time.
Mm-hmm.
As mentioned, some pretty crazy bus rides out there.
Yes.
Let me preface this by saying that summer we played 76 games in 78 days. So add together the shortest bus ride is 6, longest is 14. They sent us, and this is comical, they sent us on a 2-game road trip to Eugene, which is 8 hours, by the way. So we played 2 at our place on what would have been July 2nd and 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
And then we played 2 at their place on July 4th and 5th.
Yeah.
And this is also pre-pitch clock. We played a 20-inning game on the 4th of July, 2017. It took 6.5 hours. What's funny, the Rockies sent us a major league rehab. We had Zach Gimiola pitching for us, who was a Rockies pitcher. He started the game, and then it's funny to look back because Eugene at the time was the affiliate of the Cubs in the Northwest League. Yep. And a bunch of guys that played that night for Eugene are guys I had the next year in South Bend. So I got to hear their side of the story of the 20-inning game. So after 9 innings, we came back and tied it, and then we went to extras. And again, this is pre-automatic runner. So there's no automatic runner at second at the time.
Yes.
So first few extra innings go by the wayside. Nobody does anything. And remember, we had played 2 games at our place in Boise before. There was no off day.
Right.
So both bullpens were decimated. Completely decimated.
Done. They were cooked.
Yeah. So Eugene's catcher, his name was Teddy Payne, who was our catcher the next year in South Bend. So I got to ask him about this. This is a catcher through 4 shutout innings in extras.
Ooh.
From the 14th through the 18th, the guy threw 4 shutout innings. He's a catcher. So we just continue and continue and continue. And eventually it gets to the 20th. Our guy, his name's JB Moss, former Texas A&M Aggie. The way we won that game was crazy. And again, we had to close out the final 3 outs on the bottom of the 20th. The game-winning hit for us was a inside-the-park grand slam.
What?
Bases loaded, ball hit to dead center, hits off the center field wall, takes a crazy hop. All 3 runs score, and then JB scores all the way around. Inside-the-park grand slam. And to cap it off for the night, it's July 4th, right? It's July 4th.
Oh, wow.
The game finishes at 2:10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Eugene, for whatever reason, the organization set off all their fireworks. They played on the campus of the University of Oregon. So there are people living across the street because it's on campus. It's right across the street from Monson Stadium where they played.
Yep.
They set off all the fireworks at 2 a.m. and the next morning had to issue a public apology to the people because they were fined by the city of Eugene. Boise Hawks win the ball game in 20 innings.
Oh, my gosh.
Here's my craziest game. Brother Rice and St. Rita, 2002. Now, when I got to St. Rita, it was sunny. Nothing. Okay, this is going to be a cool game. It's 79 degrees. I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I'm in a shirt and tie. The clouds started rolling in as I climbed up into the booth, but then they had to send me up on the roof because everybody in Chicago was covering that game. It was number 3 versus number 2. I swear to you, I did not know what was going to happen. It was 14 apiece. St. Rita just got a long play coupled with a 15-yard penalty for a face mask. Brother Rice spends a timeout.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped rolling and I said, please end this. I'm soaked to the bone and I want to go home. I lost my umbrella. It's flying up 79th Street somewhere thanks to a 20-mile-an-hour gust of wind. I had to protect my equipment from the rain that was coming down. I'm getting soaked. And all I had was a trench coat with me to protect me. You know, that game went 6 overtimes?
Man.
4.5 hours later, my shoes are ruined. I'm coming downstairs. I'm getting applause from the St. Rita folks. They're like, what? I just did a game. Like, you stuck with it in those horrible conditions.
Yes.
I've been through worse.
Yes, you did.
I walked through the crowd, and you know, Catholic League football is an experience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The tailgating is a bigger experience. The tailgating is a party. All right? So I'm walking through the crowd. I'm getting ready to go to the bus. Someone stops me from the St. Rita crowd, from the St. Rita part of this. Said, did you call the game up on the roof? Yes, I did. He hands me 2 plates worth of food. And then some of the parents are like, what do you want to do? I want to go home and I want to go to bed. I got home. I put the food in the fridge. My dad's laughing at me because I'm soaked.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, how much beer did you get? I'm like, they didn't give me any beer this time until I reached in my pocket and found 4 of them. That Saturday, Victor called me. What are you doing? I'm drinking beer and I'm eating food and I'm going to bed early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I didn't blame him either.
No, I was about to say, boss, you know my wildest day I've had in broadcasting. To reiterate for those who weren't around, earlier in the year, Droid and I were doing kind of a cross between a watch party and commentating for the NASCAR races.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We started the year with the Daytona debacle. 8 hours of coverage on a Monday night.
And this is after he did the Super Bowl with me.
The week prior. 3.5 hours of Super Bowl coverage. Then I back it in to 8 hours of NASCAR coverage. I don't know what I was thinking for those 8 hours. We made it work. My voice was shot. I was dragging tail in here the next day.
Yep.
But 8 hours of NASCAR from Daytona. And then we had to couple it with the Atlanta week after that with that triple finish.
Uh-huh. Oh, gosh. There have been some wild games with us broadcasters. Brendan King, the voice of the South Bend Cubs, joining me. He also does sports for ESPN Plus. Thank you so much for coming aboard, my man. It's a pleasure, and we'd love to have you back sometime.
Pleasure's all mine, guys. Appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Thank you.